for coming today. I'd like to introduce you to the City Council of the City of Breezy Point. I'll be your moderator today. I'll let you introduce yourself real quick to Rebecca. And
Fred Ventresco. Hi, nice to meet you. Good to meet you.
Steve Jensen, nice to meet you.
Mayor Todd Rodenkamp. Nice to meet you, sir. Fred Ventresco, good to meet you.
all right, we'll take a quick seat there and then we'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Mayor, did you want to do a quick little introduction, and then after that we'll just go ahead and jump right into it?
Put this on.
Yeah, just put the microphone, just clip on the microphone. It should be turned on already.
Just clip it anywhere here?
Yep, right on your tie should be fine.
All right. Well, on behalf of the City Council and the City of Breezy Point and our staff here, I want to welcome you, Mr. Ventresco, for joining us today for the interviews. We're looking forward to talking with you and learning more about you and your background. And as Mike said, he's going to be doing the questions. So we'll be just sitting here taking some notes. So don't mind us. We'll be paying attention to what's going on there. And if by chance we happen to have a follow-up question, one of us may jump in there with something. But for the most part, I think we'll allow Mike to roll through that. So hopefully your visit with the staff went well and got you off on a good start. And it sounds like you flew in. Did you fly in?
I did, yes, to Fargo. And
Okay.
So I had to drive here. It was like equidistant, of course, but there's many of them. But got lost a couple times, but.
Well, you made it, so that was good, and you
Yeah,
didn't
I
have any
did.
weather to deal with because in Minnesota during this time
Well,
of the year,
that
you
was-
just never know.
I got boots on. I haven't worn boots in a while. I thought of it as I'm leaving. I said, wait a minute. I was thinking what dress shoes I was going to wear. Hold it. I better take my boots instead.
Well, welcome,
No.
welcome. So we'll just go ahead and turn it over to Mike, and we'll get started, but thank you
Yep.
for joining
All right.
us.
Well, thank you, Fred. So we have a number of questions here varying from budget to economic development to community involvement and conflict resolution. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with the questions,
Okay.
and feel free to elaborate as much as you like. And the council may, as the mayor said, may have a couple of follow-ups. And
Okay.
we have about an hour dedicated today, but if we do go a little bit along, that's okay. But again, we're trying to keep it within an hour.
Okay, very good.
So, all right, first question we have for you is fiscal management under budget. Fiscal management expertise is a critical function of this role. What are your skills in the area, and what techniques have you followed to manage municipal funds effectively?
Okay. Well, first I'll say that in all of my 18 years as a manager of local governments, budgeting and all the finances has been my responsibility, obviously working with department heads and whatever, but the buck stopped there as in any traditional council manager type government. So I've been responsible for that. But to get specifically, well, my first philosophy, I guess, when I start out is, and it may seem straight, but this is I want to get the best I can for every penny of the taxpayer's dollar. And I want to obviously do the best I can for the city for that amount of money or whatever we may need. And but so my approach is, I feel you rely on me to have done my research and working with the department heads and the staff and my own research and what I know to come up with a budget that is, is going to be the best for the community. So that is what I do. Now, I will say too, I've been in a lot of different communities and there's been different processes. Some, we've actually had a budget committee involved as well, so I've had someone else, and there's other actors that have come in play. Others is just between, obviously, the staff, myself, and the council. So there may be pieces there that I can add more to it, believe me, but in general, usually it's the manager and the staff and then to the council. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on, but there have been other actors in other places I've been. So I make it, again, it's a collaborative approach between me and my department heads and staff to come up with that budget. And I ask them for their standard wish lists or whatever. I say, don't make them wish, but, knowledgeable requests. And then we work together and do our iterations back and forth and again, come up with those workshops. Now, a lot of places too, we have a pre-retreat sort of meeting. I don't know if you do that here with the council, and the staff and myself, just to get your feelings first as to what your vision is and feeling, as to things you may want us to focus on, or hold the line on this, or whatever. So I've done that in processes as well, and I find that is very helpful, and I've done that in a number of the places I've been, where we've started out the budget season with a retreat or what have you, where we all just see how everyone's feeling in that thing. And I hope I'm not getting off the line too much here, but once the budget's approved, you get through all the process. Obviously, I think my job is to working with the staff to make sure, obviously, it's carried out in the most efficient manner it can be. And obviously kept spending in check, and issues come up, then you know about it, and keeping you informed as to where we're at. But I don't know if I hit all the, I know there's a few ways I could have answered that, so
Very good. Thank you.
All right, question number 2 under
Whoop, whoop, got a
sorry, yes,
follow-up.
please.
Close that door. I'd really appreciate that, thank you.
I didn't notice it was open. Nice catch.
I hear it.
Yeah, well, that just works better.
All right, question number 2 under conflict resolution. Can you tell us about a time when you had to navigate a division in your board over an issue, and what was the issue and what was your role? And did you try to build consensus, or did you stay out of the issue?
So a conflict within the board? So, okay.
And then a more conflicting issue, divisive issue. And how did you manage it?
Okay, and what was the second part there?
And did you try to build consensus, or did you just
Okay.
stay out of the issue?
Okay. Well, first in general, I'm going to say that I've been in a few situations like that, and it depends on the conflict. I mean, if it's really a conflict between two members or whatever, sometimes it's personal, let's face it, then I may not get involved. If it obviously involves a city concern, something that I'm managing, whatever, obviously I'm going to, unless the board says I don't want to hear you, I'm going to give you my opinion, my recommendations, and I think I'm going to be prepared to give you my recommendations because I think that you're going to be looking for that as well. So I would involve myself as much as possible and I feel also I'm there to try and I don't want to necessarily bring you together because you're supposed to have different opinions, you've got different ideas, and that's the way government should work. But to at least keep it peaceful and focused on the issue rather than personalities or what have you. So I'll do my best to moderate whenever that's thing. So in general, let me, I guess, and I don't know how specific you want me to get, but there's one where, let's just say there was this one community, there was always issue about this one department and should we, how it should be funded. Some didn't think it needed half the money it was getting. Others thought it's needed and we need more in that. So there was usually a little good, and it was a good split too, half and half. So the way I handled that is, and of course the poor department head in that department always was tense every year because it was focused on his department. And so obviously I try to work with him and keep the staff, keep him, I'm there and we're going to get through this. But the way I focused on that is, since it was involved budgeting and things, as anything I do and recommend to you, I am going to back it up as best I can. I want you to see in my mind how I came up with my recommendation for that and why I'm asking you to do this or why I'm recommending you do this. So how did I come to that? Because I have to convince myself. It's not what Fred wants, it's what's good for the community and what's best for the community overall as a whole. And the organization and everything. So I'm going to look at it from an objective perspective. And I'm going to bring you how I came to my decision, how I convinced myself. And that is how I'll convince you or tell you all, this is what I'm recommending clearly. And then, of course, I'm going to get feedback from that because the side that maybe doesn't like what I'm saying is going to talk to me. And the one that likes is probably not going to say anything or whatever, or they'll say, well, I told you so. But so that's the way I will, handle things like that. I want you to see how I came to that opinion, and And I want to hear your opinions too, of course. And, but the conflict, the way I handle the conflict, again, is when it comes up, and I don't know, maybe I hope I didn't veer off a little too much there, but that was the conflict. In that case, it was about this department and how much it should be funded. So the way we handle that is we would make a budget which I felt was fair and what it was, and I'd presented and fielded the questions as they came to me, and whether it be pro or positive or negative. And I kind of found that helped the council as well, because, there's going to be, each side can hit me with it, and I can say why I came to that decision. It wasn't really based on one side's opinion. I didn't try to make that budget bigger or lower. This is what I think the need of the community was for, need that the communities are, and that's why we're budgeting it this way this year.
Any follow-ups to that question?
None for me.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Thank you.
Community involvement. In Breezy Point here, they're looking for somebody that can help facilitate community involvement. So can you give us an example of how you make a direct reports feel a sense of inclusion and belonging on a daily basis?
That was community involved, how I made.
So give us an example of how you make your direct reports feel a sense of inclusion and belonging on a daily basis.
Okay, absolutely. So it's about the staff and the direct reports. Well, as we got through telling them in there, one thing I keep emphasizing is I really focus on the team approach. I am a collaborative leader, and I know everyone throws that word around. I don't like to get into the cliches of leadership books, but that's been my approach from the start. And some have liked it and some haven't. So I want to hear from staff. I involve them. I think I need that, and I always have an open door policy with them. Of course, another catchword, but it's true. I always make myself available with the staff. Work with them as a team. Now, I want to say one thing about this that I have found too that, and I don't know. I don't want to maybe push your question too much, but it is a leadership question, I guess, in some respects. I found that leadership, you have to have some flexibility in leadership as well. There are some that require, okay, I said I'm a collaborative leader, and that maybe, and I've found some that wanted a little more top-down approach. Wanted me, hey, you're the leader, you take a little more of the step, and I'm fine with that. I can adjust myself. But in general, my default is I foster that communication by, again, open team focus. We have we're just telling them there, I know on a small staff it's tough sometimes to bring everyone in for a meeting, but I think it's very important to have that, whatever, every 2 weeks or weekly meeting, just to have us sit around together and hash out, not hash out, probably not the best word, but I want to hear what you're doing, and I want to tell you what I'm thinking and where we're at. And it also helps the staff to communicate amongst themselves with me there as well. So I find it helps to get rid of, what do they call that, the stovepipe mentality, where one department's just think about itself and nothing else. And they see that the community, we're all there to serve the community as best we can. But I foster it again by making I guess if I can summarize that, making myself fully available. And this is everywhere I have, every staff has my cell. They're welcome to call me, and I encourage it 24/7. I always say that if there's a disaster going on, I want to know about it, even if it's 4 in the morning, because I'll get there at 8, and then we have to handle it then. So full communication, full accessibility, and as a mentor, resource, whatever. And so that's my, my approach with the staff. It's open. And I'll leave it at there and see if there's any questions.
Any follow-ups? Okay.
All right, the next question we have for you is, what do you see as the most challenging aspect of working with a diverse group of people who may be seasonal residents at times, and what steps have you taken to meet this challenge?
Well, it's funny, I was just telling them that. First community I was in, they called it a bifurcated community. Maybe it's similar here. And what it was the people from there, and what they call them in Maine, the people from away. That's the people that just come in, they have their seasonal houses or whatever, and they come in partway. So that's one I've had in other areas too, but that was most directed, I think, there. And that can be difficult. And because I'll have one coming in and they'll even bring it up, one side saying, you know, these other people here thinks this, and we think this, and whatever. Number one, I want to, my goal is to show them that I'm not partisan on one side, because I think that's my job. I'm not there to, you know, because the suspicion is when you have that sort of conflict, well, this person's on the side of this person, this group or that group or what have you. So I want to make sure I give equal time and really listen, and I'm open to all the different opinions, whether you want to call them totally one side or another, or usually it's more than two. But I want to make sure I give them, when they come into me or when I go out and visit them or whatever, they see that. Listen to their concerns. Try to, obviously I'm always trying to be the peacemaker, trying to, one side or one, to see what the others approach, why they're feeling this way. And you know, you have to kind of wait maybe till the end to do that, but so I want to try and bring things together too, and make us a community that is thinking, you know, for the community as a whole, and we're all trying to do the best for it. But so making myself available and being the mediator or the peacemaker in those situations, listening to all sides, and when I do, obviously you can't please everyone, so one decision is probably going to be seen as, if I have to make a decision, it's going to be seen on one side, well, maybe it's a little favoring one than the other. I'll go back to, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'll go back to that. I really want to show people how I came to that decision. There's a real reason for it. It's the budget. It's taken into account. It's the overall needs of the city. And it's really, it's not me. I want what's best for that community. And I hope you'll join me in that effort. And involving is very important too. These people or whoever might come in that you know, I want to hear, as I said, I listen to them. I want to hear, and I do take in what I hear, and try to really show that I've considered all that's been said, and it played a part in whatever decisions I might make. And I think it's very important too that you know, we've got to work together. We're the leadership team here. Is I do my best to make sure that, you know, because a lot of times they'll come in, people will be complaining to me about what the council's doing with the thing. I do my best to put forward the best light and try to show that you're doing the same things as I am, and just trying to do the best for the community. So I think that's another important thing, is I'm here to represent all of you as well in the best light.
Any follow-up? Okay.
All right,
No,
the next
next
question we have for you is, can you discuss your experience with grant writing, managing grant application processes, or securing alternate funding sources?
Yes, written a lot of grants, managed probably a little more. Worked with all the standards. You probably have all heard of some of them, like rural development or USDA grants, which are national, CDBG grants. I've worked with, I think, just about all of those, whether it's for public facilities, public infrastructure, or housing development. Worked with FEMA grants, been in a few different disasters, and had to deal with FEMA in getting, you know, the town rebuilt, or on the other side, making the town more resilient to you know, to avoid those issues. So those are some grants you might be typically or know about. Every community I've been in, or every state's kind of had their own little grants. So I've worked in smaller grants and private grants as well. So I've done a number of them. Just a couple examples, most recently, actually in Pine Tops, my last regular position in North Carolina, we got a big grant for the water department. We had a water department there, and there were breaks all over the community. And we actually managed to get some leftover ARPA funds, not the ones that were given to the city, but extra. We got a very big grant for that size of that community to redo half the town, and so I think it's on my resume. That's one most recent, working together there with that. Gotten a couple housing grants to help people, winterize their homes and that sort of thing, to help the community. But again, in general, worked a lot with grants. In some places, it was entirely me. In other places, I've had sort of a part-time helper or something, an economic development person I've worked with together. And then we always work collaboratively. In that case where there is someone else, or maybe a department head over economic community development, I obviously, like I deal with all staff, the other department heads, and I discuss with them things first before stuff. But I also keep my hand on the wheel and bring to them things. Hey, I feel my job in that case, if you did have a department head that did that, would be to make sure that, hey, I bring things forward too and work with that staff, because it's usually, especially in a smaller community, the manager is going to be the one that's going to be thought of when those topics come up.
Any follow-up? All right, Mike, go ahead.
All right. The city has an experienced leadership team. And the city has experienced leadership changes in the last several months and is dedicated to establishing a stable and healthy working environment. How would you approach promoting a collaborative culture and a healthy organizational culture?
Well, I think and I hope my style, as we kind of talked about, my collaborative team approach will do a lot of that on its own, because people will see the way I want to, I interact with them. I want that feeling that we are a team and we're all involved in this process, and I want to hear your opinions, and I want your input. I need your input if you're department heads and the specialties in those fields. So number one, just the whole way I go about leading things, I hope we'll do that. Don't want to, again, sound repeating, but I think a lot of my whole process of the way I try to manage the organization, being the open door policy, having the meetings, making myself available, and also very important, and this is the first one, is leading by example is one of the other key things that I pair with this collaborative approach, is I'm one of the team. So I think that's actually a very important part of how I do it, is leading by example. I show that I'm working, and I'm right there with them. We're all in the same pool, so to speak. Yeah, we got different levels and what have you, and different foci, but I'm part of the team, so I lead by example. I think is another very important thing. But just, yeah, if I got all that question there, I kind of went with the other one there. I would use all those methods that I use, the collaborative approach, the team approach, making myself accessible and available, and leading by example, and working right alongside with my staff. And incorporating, you talked about maybe bringing, I think part was new people or whatever. It's always important in onboarding to get that. I was just telling the other group in there too that you really get the shake up when you start adding let's call it the new generation, the X's and the Z's and what have you, to someone who's been there 40, 50 years or what have you. That takes a total dynamic change, because then you've got people that are really thinking totally differently. And I had that in my last two places. But so incorporating that too, and trying to bring those two together to think, hey, respect that the other side thinks a little different, and but we're all here for the same thing.
Any follow-up?
So as to build on that question, one of the questions that the council has for you is, provide us a specific example of a time where you managed or were part of a team that was not working well together. So if you could give us a real example, and what were you able to do to get the team back on track and working cohesively?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there was one example where one department head and probably the finance office or person definitely did not see eye to eye on a lot of things. And a small community, it may not be that way here because you're a little more diverse, but in some of these small communities, everyone knows everyone and they've grown up with everyone. And some things go back for years, and you're probably never going to change it. But I think there was an element of that created this tension between the two. But there was always issues, and this department head felt that the finance person was always overly focused on them and criticizing them, and never happy with their budgets and that sort of thing, and what they wanted, and that they were spending too much, and that sort of thing. The way I handle that is I try to, as I say, I always try to involve everyone. But what I did was more and more, and it came to the point sometimes that, I'd actually have to go out there and work with them. If the department head came and sat down with the finance person and said, tell me why I'm over in this or that or what have you, and just interject myself to make sure things were calm. I tried to, and I did, during meetings, this was one of the bigger departments, we would have meetings together to things. I would, bring them together in that respect. The way I really focused on doing this, I'm trying to think back here how it worked, because I think it did work well. In the end, I found tensions going away, was to involve them more and put myself there as the person that, okay, I've made the budget and that sort of thing overall, and we've approved it. Come to me and think of me as the person that maybe you're having an issue with. And let's talk about it, because we put this together in general, so there shouldn't be issues that way. But again, I think the key thing there was making myself available in this conflict when it was taking place, and beforehand as well, working with these two individuals individually as well. So I got it to the point where if there was a big issue, maybe where I thought there was going to be something that we would talk about it ahead of time. Maybe the department head would come in and he'd say, well, I'm thinking about this or that. So I would become more of the process there until things sort of settled down. Okay, that's kind of the way that worked.
Okay, looks like we're good with that one. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, as under project management umbrella now. So tell us about your experience in developing a community strategic plan with your elected officials for a 5 to 10 year community roadmap and vision for the future.
Well, I've done a number of strategic plans, and some have involved a very, very collaborative approach, and others where they said, well, you want you to just do it. But the way I would do it, or the way I have done it is, well, number one, I want to, once I get to know everything, I want to hear what, as I always say, it's not what Fred wants or what I want. I want what's best for the community, and I want to hear what all of you think, what the opinions are from obviously you all, the council, the community. I try to make myself involved in the business community and with the citizens, and so hopefully I'll get drunk in all this just working with people on a day-to-day basis. But I've in the past, if it was a real big strategic, by the way, I think you've got a strategic plan you're redoing now or something, you contracted with someone or something. But so I have done that in the past where we've contracted someone to sort of help us out as well. But I'm kind of focusing now on if I've done it on my own. We've done like community meetings, series of community meetings, and think tanks or focus groups is I guess the word I'm looking for, to try and get public input, workshops and those sort of things. To gather that. I want to be as informed as I can to know what all the opinions are, and of course, you are the ones that will make the final decision on these big decisions and plans. unless you give them to me. So obviously, key importance is to feel what you feel is good for the community. So I want to make sure I know that, and but work through the process of the plan. Now we're talking about more of a strategic plan. I was going to go on capital plan there, but that's kind of the way I approach it, drinking all the information, putting together some groups if we have to. Usually we'll have some kind of a plan going. So now I have done them from scratch, but I won't get into that since you've already got some going. I want to say, okay, this is what we've done, maybe a recap. And we're this far in this point of the plan, and we still got this to do. So, laying out where we're at, what we've done so far, giving some history, and maybe how that has have worked out. But in general, and it has been, as I say, we have brought in consultants too in a couple cases where I worked with them. In that case, I've noticed that my role also becomes keeping them in line, because sometimes, let's face it, consultants are working for many different communities. Each community has its own unique setup. And it's going to be my job there too to educate that person too, or say, okay, when I think they're getting lined, they may be the professionals, but to say, well, I beg to differ a little bit on this, and we go back on this. If it's me, of course, on my own, as I pretty much said, that I do on that respect.
So let's go on to the next question here. So what experience do you have in coordinating the development, financing, and implementing of capital projects and improvements within your organization and with other governmental agencies?
Done a lot with capital projects, whether it's been I've done a lot with utilities, sewer. Done a number of those capital projects in sewer, whether it be for upgrades or where we had issues with outflows or things of that nature with the environmental protection or that sort of thing. Done projects for building new town offices and police stations and sand salt sheds. A bunch of different capital projects. Now, and you may have another one there, so I won't stick on it too much, but very important for that is the following your capital plan. I've come into a number of communities which have not had a capital plan, and that's so important when you start talking about projects, long-range, big projects, whether it be whether it be for property like vehicles or infrastructure type projects, that you have a good plan there too. Another plan focused on 7-10 years out, 20, what you're going to need. So that's a very important part of that working on projects. But in all these capital projects, I've done a number of them from what I'll call from start to finish, whether it be working with the architects and the engineers to begin the project and bidding it out. Obviously, somewhere in there, you usually have to try and get funding and grants for it. Usually the big capital projects, you're going to need some kind of help in funding. Then once the project the shovels hit the ground, so to speak, then becomes making sure the contractors are doing that and all the change orders. I hear you've had some interests with some change orders lately on the project there recently, Rushman project. I was just watching your last one there, and that looked pretty familiar to me, and comes with the last minute with a payment, the change and scope and that. Worked with those things, and had some difficult times in that situation too, where I had to really try to pull things in line. But so used to pretty much the whole gamut of capital projects, and how you seek the grants for them, and work with the engineers and the professionals, and then and of course involving always involve the departments, especially the ones that are directly involved, whether it be sewer, water, or whatever, and make sure they're alongside me there, and because they're the ones that are working in it every day and know best in that situation.
All right.
Any follow-ups? Go ahead, Mike.
All right, so the next question. What process or procedure do you follow to effectively communicate with the mayor, council, and your board members? And how would you keep them informed to avoid those surprises?
Right, absolutely, yep. Yep. One thing I have learned is to make sure and inform the council on the things that are you're gonna get stopped in, well, we don't have a supermarket here, you're gonna get stopped in the store or whatever, hey, what's going on here or there, so I wanna make sure you're up to date. The process I use that, I mean, let's face it, nowadays it's a lot easier probably than years and years and years ago. Luckily I wasn't in that, but because we all have our emails and that's a real good thing. Obviously we have to be trained not to get into a discussion and that sort of thing, but that's one of my major things, and the way I pipe out information to you electronically so it's in real time. You know what's going on, something just happened here, and you know, be aware. So electronic communications, and now if it's a big deal, I'm going to be on the phone. I'm a direct contact person too. Hey, this is what's going on. You know, want you to be aware of it, and you know, this is sort of things that happen between meetings and stuff. Obviously, at the meetings, I'm trying to make sure that you're all as informed as possible with your packets, and you have ample chance to maybe ask me questions before the meetings, you know, try to get the packets and things out to you a little ahead of time, what have you, let you know what's going on. Working closely, of course, and I've had different setups with the mayor. You know, sometimes we work more closely, other times, you know, they say, well, you just get it done and shoot it to me and we'll go. Other places, the mayor wanted to be a little more involved, and we worked together real strongly on how to put that together, because it's kind of understood that in some places that's the way it's set up. And I've worked too with, this is very important, every council has a slight chemistry difference. So I really try, and I think it's very important, and right at the start, to really get a feeling, and then of course you have to do it again if there's a big change on the council, but to really get what are the expectations you have, the specific ones for the chemistry of that council. In general default, though, you're going to be informed, and you're going to be informed equally. I always say that, and I don't know if it's true here, but most of my councils and boards, if there's 5 or 7 or even 3, there's going to be 2 that are going to visit me and call me very often, and the others I'm not going to see until the council meeting time. So I make sure that you're all kept informed equally. I know that's a very important part of this job, because you'll get, you know, the one request, and not one can, you know, can make a decision for the whole board, when some, now let's face it, it just happens, maybe just because they're not new to the profession and don't know that I work for all of you equally. So, but keeping you informed that way electronically, and as I say, like with everyone else, I do that, or you're all free to come and see me and call me and get info to me as to what you're looking for and moving forward in that direction.
Follow-ups? Okay, we're good. Keep going.
I have a couple of general questions for you. This one really is directly towards you, especially as an administrator where you've been with over the years. Do you have any reservations about serving as the next city administrator, and what would be your steepest learning curve relating to this position today for Breezy Point?
Well, I don't really have any reservations at all. As I say, I've been doing this for collectively in all the communities I've been in, 18 plus years of experience. I worked with a number of different communities and different states. The only most challenge for me, there's always, let's face it, even if you're right in the state, there's always, you know, you got to get every community is different, so that's one. A lot of people think there's going to be a big learning curve transferring. I haven't worked in Minnesota yet, you all know that. However, I hope you'll notice that I've worked in, 5 different states now, or 4, and I really haven't had a big issue, and I have found more similarities than differences in the laws of the states. And most important, though, is there are certain areas where there is going to be differences that I know where to look. For example, the open meeting laws. Those do vary quite a bit. Some as short as 24 hours. Others were as much as 4 days for a meeting, for example. There are Other things too, that just comes to mind because I found it was a big difference in states. But there are areas where you're going to, at least, you know, not foolproof. I haven't done a statistical thing of all the states, but I've got a good feel where there's going to be differences and to watch out for. So transit, that's the only thing I can really think of is transitioning. You know, it's a new state, so there's going to be a little learning curve there. But I haven't found it overly problematic, and I think all my places I've worked would agree with that. And I enjoy that sort of thing too. I'm kind of connoisseur of governments and how they run. I really enjoy it. That's why I kind of stayed in this profession once I finally got to it at all levels. So I really can't think of any, you know, things. Looking through all your projects and challenges and opportunities you have going for you now. Yes, they're going to be unique because you're a unique community, but the theme is definitely things I can't think of anything I haven't faced yet.
All right. Final question before we get to ask, until you get to ask your questions to the council.
Okay.
So the final question is what is the hardest thing that an administrator needs to do?
The hardest thing. Let me think about that in just a second. We do so many things. The hardest thing. And by hard, I mean, it's maybe more trying and something you've got to keep going at rather than difficult. So I don't really think it's a problem or difficult, but it's a challenge and that you've got to keep focusing on is, I think, we talked a lot about it too in different questions here, is really trying to bring all the different forces together or the different groups and knowing, making the best recommendations for that community as a whole. Because you got so many, you know, different, as we talked about a bit, different inputs from all the community, from all of you, because all of you are not going to have the same opinions. And staff's going to have that. And you got to drink in all this information and somehow bring it together, which is I'm the one person that is got to try and do that. So, you know, maybe getting everyone as pleased as possible, but knowing some are not going, you're not going to please everyone. That's just the way it is. And in that process, making sure that just determining what is the best for that community. I think that's the best challenge. There's so many, it's hard to take, but that's trying to throw them all in at once.
All right, well, final question. Do you have any questions for the council?
Yeah, well, I usually ask, and again, you know, you probably get all your opinions, but I hope you have time to ask. Is, besides doing everything, is there any special strength that you're really looking for that you really want to make sure your manager has? Person that maybe, I don't know, either you haven't had in the past or you just want to say, hey, this is something I'm really cautious about and I really want to make sure this person knows, hey, this is expected of him. I don't know if that's
Well,
a
I'll let
quick
the council
focus
members answer it first.
I'll take a stab at it. I think it's multiple things involving staff. I mean, communicating with staff, getting their input. You know, as a community, we have a lot going on. I mean, we have a streets CIP, 15 million, you know, that's something that's getting off the ground and close to starting. And, you know, I think just communication and, you know, working with the staff and keeping council informed and the community as well. And I think you've demonstrated that and, you know, your answers to your question.
Very important. Yep.
Councilmember Paul?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the ones I had on my list, just keeping the council of staff informed, keeping everyone involved. I think the other one I had was just being responsive to emails and questions. I know in the past we've had like questions from residents and things like that that maybe have sat there longer than those individuals have liked. So just if that was part of your role, just being responsive to those issues as well.
Councilmember Maroney?
Yeah, kind of echoing team collaboration, which you've more than addressed on that one, and then just project management skills, making sure things are staying on task.
That's a biggie.
Those are the kind of things that hit home for me.
Yeah, and I think I can echo the rest of the council because that's kind of where we're all at. That idea of staff involvement, community involvement, council involvement, that we're all working together for the best interests of that community as a whole. And you've kind of answered that in your questions and kind of spoken to those. So, but and I don't want to speak for the whole council, they all spoke for themselves, but just to compile that, we all feel that way. We think that's a very, very important aspect because that's what helps make it successful. That makes it go. So yeah, I think that's really important to us to have that collaborative effort, that we're all working together as a team, that we're keeping each other informed, that there are no surprises, with the idea that you can't always be 100%, and we understand that and recognize it as well.
It's good, yeah, no, it's absolutely important.
Any other questions that you have for us?
Well, I know you got a lot of projects going right now, so maybe I won't get into that too much, but is there anything that's a real pressing thing that you know, like maybe we haven't talked about, the manager really should, maybe going to be a big thing that's thrown right on your desk when you come in, that always happens.
Well, I'll start off with that. I think we have several things. Our community is growing. And with that, from your experience, you may recognize this, there are growing pains. That's exasperated a little bit by the fact that we are a seasonal as well as a residential community. So you have a combination of those things going on. And getting ahead of maybe where we're at with regards to roads. You heard Councilmember Jensen mention that we have a big, CIP for roads, and that's an infrastructure piece for our city. There's a big road project we're working on right now that's an ongoing thing that's been there for a long time. Infrastructure with regards to the city hall. Infrastructure with regards to our sewer. We know that there are things coming down the road that we're going to be working on there, as well as other projects that we're thinking about. Even our parks and some of the stuff going on with some of the things that are here for amenities to the citizens of the community. So again, and the council can add their own things, but for my mind, there's going to be big projects. Not to speak of the fact that whoever the new administrator coming in is going to be looking at staff and hiring staff right out of the gate. Because there's going to be some needs for that. And we know that already, so.
Just to add on to Mayor Rogenkamp's in regards to staff, I mean, previously we had assistant city administrator. That person resigned. We need city planner. That has to be addressed. For building permits, whether the planning, does the administrator take some of that on? We get staff to, handle issue, and so the permits and things like that. But and with resident, input from staff, they're the ones that do the job day to day, and, taking their input. What positions do you feel, do they feel that, are needed? And then, ultimately it's council's decision, but, staff needs input.
Yeah, Mike mentioned that there's a lot of staffing stuff in there that may need to be on. Yep, and that's good. I've done that. One place I was at, we had a lot of retirements and things. It was total change of staff there. But that can be a good thing too, especially if you get an administrator that's going to be there a while. And because, if you hire them right, you set the expectations right. And so that's a good opportunity.
Which I would just add real quickly, in my mind, longevity is important.
Yeah.
I think that creates stability. I think it creates consistency, particularly with the city administrator, and that goes down from there.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
anything?
Nothing further to add.
Anything? Okay. All right. Anything else for us?
I guess that's it. Of course, you get asked a lot, and move forward, it'll definitely be a lot. But I think that's probably good because you've made it pretty clear. It sounds consistent too, which is great.
I did have one additional question
Yep,
for
go ahead.
Fred.
Now's the time.
Looking at your resume, I mean, you've worked rural communities, similar sizes to ours, and Mayor Rogenkamp, you know, mentioned longevity, and in the work history, you know, 2 years was several positions, one was 3 years. You know, what are why did you leave those positions? Was it just an advancement? Or, you know, because the city needs continuity. And that's really one of the things I feel we're looking for and we really need.
I understood that, yeah. Well, one was almost 4 years. My first one, if you notice, was 3.5. Yes. Okay. First of all, let me just say, my earliest positions, you'll notice, were a little longer. They were that 3.5 than the 3. Then I took a number of years off. I had family things. It was just better for me to be closer to my family at that time. So I did consulting and that sort of thing. It was longer than I wanted to be. 3 or 4 years, it turned into be 5. So when I came back, and all that's over now, of course, I pretty much just started jumping into any community that I could. And sometimes you have to do that at work. To be honest, except in one case, if you look at every one of those communities, their history going back 20 years or more, that was the average tenure. And for example, just to give you 2 examples, if you Google right now Limestone, Maine, there's a big article there. It always pops up. It'll say, I think they're going on their, I don't know, 4th or 5th since I left there in 2017 and going way back. Sandusfield, Mass, I am still, I believe, the longest tenured person there. Now, they'd established it early, though. It's not an old position for them. They had established it in 2014. I was there from 17 to 19. But I think I'm still the longest tenured person there, and I think there's another article there about. So it was the nature of the communities, and I also proactively, as you can see, got out on some of them because I could tell it was a shaky position, and I kept trying to find stability is what I really tried to do. But it seemed like in my last 3 or 4, it's been just lateral moves and going into the same thing. But if you look at the history of those, now there was one I did leave, even though Limestone's had problems, I did leave there practically just to get way up in northern Maine, and it's not like here, you are more than up there. I wanted to be a little more in a central area, central location. And my first position, obviously I left that because that was my first and I wanted to move up. But I know those last like 3 or 4 were quick there. And, but that is, if you look at the history. I will say one thing, 2 of them have hired, and I hate to get into parochial stuff again, 2 of them have gotten some longevity since I've left. And the reason I really think they only have, and that's Ware, New Hampshire, and which one is the other one there? Well, Milan, I think, is going to do that. And I hate to say it, but it's because they hired someone, unlike here where you've got to search from someone everywhere and you're looking, they took someone from the community that was really a very important person in the community. And they're going to hang around a while because they own half the town, or their family does. So that, and sure enough, it worked. Well, the person at Ware, when I left there, is still there. But her husband owns half the town. They like her, and she's there. So there's going to be some exceptions to that. But if you look close, it wasn't because they pulled someone in like here with a full, a broad pulling in the best candidate, so to speak. But I hope that addressed it. That's the big thing, is the nature of most of those communities. Again, in some I was happy to get out too because of the shakiness of it. So when I saw it happening, I started looking, but it was just the nature of the tenures were long there, were short in all those communities.
No, thank you. That answers my question.
Do we have any other follow-ups one more time? Oh, all right. Well, Fred, thank you for taking the time to come in and interview with us today. As you know, we have some other interviews to go through today.
Oh, sure.
The council is planning to deliberate and look at their options and then hopefully be making a decision here soon within the next few days to at least get some movement forward. So we'll be looking at that, and so we'll communicate through Mike back to you, but we want to thank you for your time and appreciate you coming in and sitting down, and if, you know, by chance, if you have any other information you want to share, just send it back through Mike and he'll get it to us, so.
Very good.
All right, excellent. I think, do we have a little tour? Is that right, Jerry, afterwards for him, or? Perfect. All right, excellent. So we'll allow you to get going on that and enjoy it. Thank you.
Very good.